Hey, my name is Jeremy Linneman. I'm the pastor of Trinity Church in Columbia, Missouri. And I've been thinking about this question, why do we feel lonely at church, for quite a while. In my first year of pastoral ministry, I remember doing a member interview with a family that seemed like they had it all together. This was a family that was able to articulate the gospel. They had been in our church for some time. They had served in other churches. But as I began to press in, I was noticing something that I hadn't noticed before. And I asked them a question that just sort of struck me in the moment. Hey, do you have any friends? And they sort of looked at each other and said, no. And it struck me in the moment. And I don't know even what I said besides, you should probably have some friends. But it began me on this journey of trying to understand what it is that makes it so difficult to build meaningful relationships and friendships in our society and in our churches. In 2017, there was an article by the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, called The Loneliness Epidemic. And after traveling all over the country, he said the number one health crisis facing our country is loneliness. There was a study that showed that the effect of loneliness on someone's health is the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And so what we began to discover is that loneliness has seeped into our society in a way that hasn't affected a society like this ever before. America is the loneliest society in human history. And that was even true before COVID. And then with COVID, we began to spend more time insulated in our homes and specifically looking at our screens. The reason that this matters so much to me as a pastor and as a believer is because we have been created in the image of a relational God. God has existed as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Within the very essence of his being, he is in relationship. And so to be made in the image of a triune God means that we are fundamentally relational beings. We're not wired to be isolated individuals, but rather persons in community. To be fully human, to be fully alive, is to be a person in community. Jesus demonstrated this wonderfully in his earthly life with the way that he gathered his people around them and lived in fellowship. And so for us to be like Christ, for us to be fully alive, relationships must be a key component of our lives. We must push back on the trend of social isolation in our own society, push back on the loneliness that creeps in all around us. We have so many forces leading us to loneliness and away from one another. But rather, we must move towards one another, especially in our churches. And so our churches can be places of belonging. In fact, the local church is probably the place of belonging according to the New Testament. To belong is to be both fully known and fully loved. We are fully known and fully loved by God. And when we are also fully known and fully loved in community, we have found true belonging. To be fully known or not loved, or to be loved when we're not known, is not the same as being fully and deeply known, fully and deeply loved, which can only be true of us in the gospel through the work of Jesus in our place, restoring us to the Father, bringing us to the Father, and connecting us to one another in the church. So it's in the church that we can find true belonging with God and with one another. For those of us who are in the church that are seeking to build greater connection and relationship, there are some practices that we can embrace in order to draw our lives closer together. And the first one is simply to reorient our lives around relationships. We often have relationships that are scattered across our workplace or our neighborhood or our children's school or our old friends. And we have all these relational circles with very little overlap. Often social media and the way we use the internet can be another relational circle that can pull us out of local face-to-face community. So the task for us as believers, especially in the church, is to find a way to reset our schedules, reset our lives around relationships. Now, once we do that, we also have to love one another, serve one another, do all of the things that Paul specifically commands us to do across the New Testament, and especially to stay together. When it gets hard, to press through conflict. Even if we might get a certain job opportunity or an exciting opportunity somewhere else, it may be that for the sake of our souls and our families, staying put is the best possible thing we can do. And so we have been invited into God's presence by the work of Jesus Christ so that we can be fully known and fully loved by him, but we can also experience remarkable community with one another in the church, and that is true belonging.